Welcome to the Journey Through Homeschooling podcast, practical support for every step of your homeschool adventure. I'm Jami Thornsberry.
And I'm Adonna Pryor.
Adonna, today we are going to talk through tips and encouragement for teaching multiple children. I think this is something that especially new homeschool families can struggle with. We hear it in families who are considering homeschooling, that's something they're concerned about. How do I have, maybe it's a toddler and a 7-year-old, and how do I manage both of them at the same time, or even more children than two? Maybe you have an age range of young all the way up to high school, and you're considering either pulling them out, or you're new to homeschooling in another way, and you just want to make sure that everybody is getting the time and energy they need and getting the things they need done. And Adonna, I'm going to let you start because you homeschooled with 4 kids all at the same time. And I think you probably learned a few things in this realm.
One or two. So I'm going to start early with something I learned about just being a mom to multiple kids. And that is when a child wants your attention in general, and I would say almost every single time, they're not saying, please sit with me for the next 45 minutes. They really need about 10 or 15 minutes of your undivided attention. It took me a while to realize that was what was going to satisfy the child. So when we had, say for instance, when we had 2 and you have a new baby and you think, well, I'm really busy, and your child comes to you and says, Mom, I need this, Mom, I need that. And you think, well, hang on just a minute. You've got laundry, you've got dishes. And Jami and I have talked about this a bunch of times, both of our experiences. And we both realized that it takes very little time for you to stop what you're doing and to focus on that child, sometimes as little as 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And really, it's rarely more than 15 minutes. And then they've moved on and they have something else that they're planning. So it's a huge help for you if you can stop what you're doing and focus a few minutes on what that child is doing. It takes a lot of their anxiety away. It takes a lot of their begging and constant asking away. It takes a lot of their fears that you don't love them anymore because you have this other child, you like them better. It takes all of that away because you are spending time with them. But it's not an hour. It's not, you're really not stopping anything you're doing. Yeah. You're just taking a very short break. So that's the first thing I would say is make sure that you understand making time for each child usually doesn't take as long as we anticipate or assume it's going to take. The next thing is, one of the big things I realized was I needed to teach to my oldest child. So every year we would tailor what we were doing around what the oldest was doing. Mm. And then everybody else kind of was following the same history, the same science, not the same math, but that's okay. But in general, the same history, the same art, the same science, the same, sporting program, whatever we were doing, almost all of it was initially geared to my oldest child. Then the next child down, depending on how far the separation was either doing exactly what the oldest was doing, or they may have a slightly different, their workbook may look slightly different, or their project may look slightly different, or I would team them up and they had to do projects together. For the really little ones, we usually had like a box of toys or a set of things that just came out when we were doing homeschooling. Yeah. So that box of things, whatever was in there, whether they were board books or coloring pages, generally were kept in there until we homeschooled. And when we were done with whatever the olders were doing, that went back in the box and got put away. That worked really well for us. The only time-consuming thing for me initially was I wanted to find something for the really younger ones that kind of matched what the older ones were doing. I think I was definitely overthinking that. They don't have to have anything that matches. They can have something really simple. It can be a $1.25 Dollar Tree coloring book. It doesn't have to be something big or fancy. So that was kind of where we started. Yeah, my phone is doing weird things and I don't know what it's doing. Put it away. But that was where we started. And it took us a couple of years until the youngest, we have 4, until the youngest was at a point where they were joining everybody when we were sitting down for a lesson, or they were really interested in it. But for the most part, they did really well because I had certain things that they wanted to see every day. Right. So if you've got a box that you're putting away, a box of toys, or they're excited to actually get to sit at the table with their sister or their brother and have something to color that looks very similar to what their sister or brother's doing, that always works. So I did invest in a printer, copier. It was a laser printer because ink is way more expensive than toner. Mm-hmm. So we did spend the extra on a laser printer. And I did look at, first thing I would do when we studied something is I was always trying to find free pages, free worksheets, free coloring pages. And then I would just search and see what I could get that matched kind of the lesson that we were planning for the day.
I think that's one of the beauties of homeschooling today. You know, when we first started homeschooling, the amount of resources that we have now, via the internet, were just not available. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had to, go pay for a book of color pages, or you had to go buy a coloring book, or you had to make those coloring pages yourself. And with 9 years between my children, we were in that same vein of anything the older one was doing, the younger one wanted to do the same mm-hmm. thing. And it was so easy to be able to go on and get like a notebooking page for the older one that had, pictures and graphics mm-hmm. of I think specifically of doing Vikings. Right. And then find a coloring page that was suitable for, right. A child 9 years younger. And that was really helpful.
Yeah. One of the things that we did, especially when we had to read aloud, was everyone had a blank page and then some sort of, crayon or colored pencil. And as I read, there were a couple times where I said, I want you to draw a picture that you have in your mind about what I'm reading about. And it was so much fun to see the different things that they were imagining. Any grade can do that. Any age child can do that. It doesn't have to be age specific. Any child can do that.
Yeah, we used Play-Doh sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Build the scene, build
mm-hmm.
something from what we're listening to.
So it after a while, you started to see the different personalities because they're all working together. You started to see the different personalities and what they could bring to the table and add to what you're talking about, right? Because they all have different talents. So I think that the hardest time was when you have a child that is under the age of 2. And that child really doesn't, when you hand them a crayon or something, they're going to put it in their mouth and try to eat it. So you may need to be holding the child. Yeah. And in playing with something in front of you while you're talking to the other kids, right? Or there are a lot of times I would sit with my legs propped up on a chair and fold clothes on my lap, right? While there's a toddler sitting there who wants to unfold them or refold them a different way. And I really didn't care because the toddler was occupied.
Yeah.
So the toddler would hand me a sock, and I would say, okay, match it. And then you've got a couple minutes while they're digging through it all trying to find a match where you can have a conversation. But it was something that occupied the child, but the child also understood they were part of what you were doing. Yeah. You were interacting with them. You were having fun with them. They were, I had one child who just absolutely had a blast taking everything out of the laundry basket, laying it on my legs as they were stretched out, and flattening it out, and then getting another object, laying it on top and flattening it out. And when everything was out of the laundry basket, they would take everything and put it right back in the laundry basket one at a time, and then do the project all over again.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, we're having fun. And then every once in a while I'd say, well, can you fold it? And you'd try to see if they would fold it. But meanwhile, I have all of this time to have a conversation with an older child.
Yeah.
Whether it's reading a book aloud, or maybe we're watching a movie or a video, or they're drawing something, or we're doing a math. It didn't matter what it was. We had this moment in time. Later on, when the youngest was probably in second or third grade, we did take the opportunity to actually purchase some of the, I call them add-alongs, but they're lap books or unit studies that sometimes history curriculums will sell separately from the main text. Mm-hmm. And we did purchase a few of those because it did help with everybody who, there were a couple, I have two of my kids who liked to actually draw or take the time to color, and they liked doing those things. It saved me time from having to look up something online that would go with what we're doing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we just stuck right to gearing everything to the oldest child and then working from there. So if she was going through ancient history, everybody was going through ancient history. If she had to draw a map of the state of Tennessee, then everybody got a map of the state of Tennessee, and they got to put Nashville wherever they thought Nashville might go. As close as you can. Whatever. If you can you make a star? Make a star. If you want to make it as big as the state, I don't care. And really, that's part of what you have to unlearn. If you're a perfectionist, which I am, you want everything to be thorough. And I had a problem with overthinking everything and making it more difficult. So I had to come to the point of saying, that's fine. That ugly looking star in the middle of Tennessee, which you think looks like Nashville, that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your ends can be backwards. You're 5. I'm cool with your ends being backwards. I don't care.
Yeah, it's refocusing on all the things that they are learning.
Right.
Rather than, the actions that they're performing in the moment.
The little kids had to take more frequent breaks. And keeping them in the same room could sometimes be a challenge because they can only sit there for 10 or 15 minutes and then they want to get up and go somewhere else. So keeping a track of what they're doing was sometimes a challenge. But it just meant, me getting up and saying, excuse me, let me go check on your sister or brother, and then going in the room. And everybody understands that. You're teaching manners. You're teaching how to handle the situation. You're teaching parenting skills to the older children. So, it does eventually work out. It is physically exhausting to be a stay-at-home homeschooling parent when you have little children.
Yeah.
You are up and down. You're constantly in motion. Your brain is constantly going. I don't really feel like there were moments where I don't think my brain ever shut off. But you're rewarded for that later on.
For sure.
The joy and the blessings of that come back to you. So for that time, I just kept remembering, don't grow weary in doing good. This is what you're supposed to do. Try not to grow weary in doing good. Did I? I absolutely did, because it is physically exhausting. But it worked out, and you just had to keep on top of things, but remembering to also let things go. Don't overthink things. Don't be so focused on the tiny little details. Make sure that everybody has some of your time, and understand that they're really they're really good with 10 or 15 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
They don't have that. You don't have to sit there and stare at them for hours on end. It's going to be fine with just 5 to 10 minutes. So that really is how we coped with it and how we went around it. One of my goals was to make sure that they didn't dislike each other. So I didn't want to present information as you have to be quiet because I need to focus on your sister. I didn't want to put any kind of ill will between them.
Right.
Not that I didn't, not that I never said that, but I was always aware of how I was going to present telling someone no, because I did need to focus over here. Right. And generally what I would do is, we need to focus on math right now. If you'll give me 10 minutes and I will set the clock, then I will focus on what you need me to focus on. But I can't leave this right now. I will focus on what you've got. And then I would have a little timer and we would set, look at the clock, and that teaches them how to look at the clock. Also teaches them how to read time.
Yeah.
So all of that were ways I was attempting to get my goal of, I want them to be respectful of each other. I want them to like each other. I don't want to play them off of each other. So I don't want them to think that I don't have time for them. So I made sure that they understood that you're going to get time. He's going to get time. She's going to get time. Everybody has got that plugged in. It's going to be okay. I'm not abandoning you, but I do need to be respectful of the time I have set aside for this lesson.
Yeah. And it teaches patience as well.
Mm-hmm. It
teaches
does.
Graciousness, that they're going to have a gracious attitude towards you and toward their sibling,
Right.
who is, of greater need in the moment,
Right.
than the need for, just playing or what have you. So there's a lot of learning going on there, even as we're sharing our time between our children.
Mm-hmm.
Don't discount that, because those are
Absolutely.
the things, that attitude of graciousness, that, the learning of patience. Oh my word. If those are the two things your kids only ever learned, our world would probably be a whole lot better place, honestly.
Yes.
But yeah, those are the realities of living in a family. And those are the realities of living well in the world.
Right.
To be gracious towards others when you don't get what you want, because their need in the moment is greater.
I do think it's more difficult for families that just have one child to get some of that point across. I think there are going to be things that you're going to get really well and things that you're going to lack. Just like there were things that we got really well and there were things that we lacked. They also learned when I made mistakes, when I lost my temper, when I got upset at somebody. And I did yell and say, can you just be quiet, or whatever it was. Then you have to go back and say, and I'm sorry. This is, I'm very sorry for this. Mom is going to put herself in timeout.
Yeah.
So you learn that you make mistakes, I make mistakes, and we're still accountable to God for that. And I'm going to have to say, I'm sorry to you. I'm going to have to say, I'm sorry to the Lord. This is how it works. So you're learning so much character in that moment that we do see missing from so many young children. We see a lack of respect. Yeah. We see a huge lack of respect, a huge lack of patience. Not just in saying, well, we're losing the ability to think logically. We also don't have the ability to stand in a line, to be gracious or nice to the people that are serving us. Mm-hmm. We don't have the ability to drive through town without losing our cool. These are the things that we are losing very quickly. And it's because we think that someone else needs to teach it, or we think that what we are teaching isn't important.
Right.
That our behavior that we're modeling for our children just isn't important enough. We have to get a curriculum, a Bible curriculum, or a character curriculum, or we can't just read the Bible. We can't just demonstrate character. We actually have to have a boxed set curriculum that teaches it, and we don't. That's just not the case.
Yeah, that is true. It is very helpful, especially, when you're juggling so many other things, but it's not necessary.
Right.
And there are cheaper and, quite frankly, better ways, oftentimes, to homeschool multiple age children. Like you said, using history or literature as your spine, you can, go to the library and grab a couple of books, and you can be reading those books, even if they're at a higher level than your youngest. They're still going to get what they need to get.
Right. We left Dairy Queen one time, and I had a large drink in my hand. And as we were walking out, my youngest, who was 4 at the time, he said, "That drink is ginormous." He didn't actually get the word ginormous. He said ginormous. But the man who was sitting at the table said, "Did you see that? That 4-year-old knows the word ginormous." I was like, well, it's ginormous. But it was one of those things, because he was listening to everybody else say, "Oh, that's enormous," right? Because you're listening to everybody else talk, and he's like, "Oh, it's ginormous." So it's kind of fun to see the youngest pick it up. If I go back to my life, I know that there were things that my oldest sibling knew really well how to do that I didn't know, because she had literally been with my mother for 4 other children, right? Yeah. So she had picked up all these great tips about having to care for a child. I never learned any of those tips. They just gave me a child at the hospital and said, "Fine, go home," right? I didn't have any of those great tips that my oldest sister had. There are going to be things like that, and that's perfectly fine. The Lord knows exactly what order to put your children in. Absolutely. So it's perfectly fine. But it is, those are the things that are really cool that you pick up as you're going along. Each of your kids is going to have a different experience. And just focus on the main things, right? They need to know the Lord. I wanted them to leave every night, go to bed and say, "I didn't know Jesus was that wonderful." And I wanted them to get along with each other. I didn't want to, put up huge boundaries, and I wanted them to learn respect. Yeah. When someone in charge is talking, when someone in charge is doing what you need to, be quiet and be respectful. So that was it. I didn't really overthink. I wanted Latin. I wanted them to each learn. We talked about this on Facebook today. I wanted a bluegrass band, if I were honest. One to play the guitar, one to play a banjo, one to play the bass, one to play a fiddle. This is what I wanted. I didn't get that at all. None of them played any. They didn't do it at all. I wanted foreign language and a bluegrass band. I got none of that. But I got 4 really great kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have 4 great kids who have some of the most amazing interests.
They do. They have weird and varied interests, which is cool. I like that.
So I'm thinking of, the family that is considering maybe pulling their kids out of school. They've got maybe 2 in school, 2 out of school, or, even a wider variety maybe of all of them in school. Like, a family like yours, 4 kids, 2 in elementary, 1 in middle, and 1 in high school. And they're going to all come from a public school background, and they're going to come home, and mom's envisioning chaos.
It is going to be chaos at the beginning, and that's okay, because they've never worked together. They've never spent hours on end figuring out how they should get along with their brother, or how they should get along with their sister.
Or learning to entertain themselves. Right?
Exactly. They've always had someone telling them exactly what to do for every minute of every day. And that's not going to happen now, except for you. You're the one who's going to set up a schedule. And for that, I would strongly encourage you to have a general schedule and put it on the refrigerator. And it doesn't have to be to the minute. You don't have to have at 8:10, we do this until 8:22. It doesn't have to be that. It can be at 8 o'clock. This is what we're doing at 8:15 or 8:30. And this is mainly for the older ones, for them to get an idea of what's going on. And it's mainly for you, so that you understand these are kind of the goals we want to hit during the day. One of the lifesavers for me when I had a lot of kids was a unit study where everybody is doing the exact same subject at the exact same time. So look up unit studies. A lot of them can be free. There's a homeschool share site that does a lot of unit studies and lat books for free that you can just print them off. But but it's going to be chaos initially. So if you're pulling them, if you would pull your student now, this is we're approaching the last quarter, then I would recommend you take a huge break. You not even do school for the rest of the year. Unless you're thinking to yourself, well, I have a high schooler and they need to finish a couple more weeks of algebra or chemistry or something. But that's it. Take some time off to sit and talk to each other, read some books.
Yeah.
Get some books that people have an interest in. And then all of a sudden you'll be understanding what exactly it is your child has been reading and what exactly you like about it, what you don't like about it. And you'll be able to go and find some really cool books. Get books that were written, generally speaking, before 1950. Classic books that were written before 1950s. And check them out and sit around and read aloud together. Get popcorn, right? Everybody gets popcorn and a big jug of whatever drink you want them to have, some sweet tea and some popcorn, and you sit around and you enjoy the time spent together. Now, you're going to find out in that if you've got multiple kids, there's probably going to be one of them that really doesn't like sitting down and listening to you to be read to.
Yeah.
They want to have something in their hands while you're doing it. They want to be playing Legos. I believe that Jamie, you were saying your child liked to play Legos. They're going to want to have a coloring pencil in their hand. They're going to want to have maybe a puzzle. They're going to want to have something in their hands, and you're going to figure that out. And then you're going to note it and say, okay, whenever I'm reading or whenever we're doing a lesson, this child may need something that they're touching, and that's perfectly fine. They'll hear exactly everything you say. They just need to have something in their hands.
Yeah,
so you provide that for them, whatever it is that they like to do. Give them a bunch of Legos and say, okay, we're going to read about, a boat. We're going to read about the Titanic. See if you can build a boat with those Legos, right? Whatever it is, I would recommend if you're starting now and you're pulling a bunch of children from the public school, that you take a break. You take at least a 2 or 3 month break where you are doing things like hiking, you're going to the park, you're taking your dog for a walk. Everybody's going into town and they're walking the dog, they're jogging around, they're on bike rides. Then you're reading things aloud. You're finding good things that you might want to watch on television. You're enjoying each other's company.
Yeah.
But as a mom, you are paying attention to what your kids like and aren't like as a character, as a human being.
Yeah.
What do you need to fix here? Is there a child that is angry? Is there a child that it just doesn't want to talk? Is there a child that wants to talk all the time? Is there a character issue that you say, you know what, we need to really address this. We need to make sure that you're not acting like a complete and utter idiot everywhere we go. So you need to address that issue. But don't worry about the schooling. Take a break and figure things out from there. That's what I would really recommend.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people push back at that, but that's what I would really recommend.
One of the things that I would add to your list is, while you're taking that break, get your kids to do chores together.
Yes. Ooh, that's a good one.
Not just, mom does everything, kids, are laying around doing nothing, but getting them to work together, because then that's going to form bonds between them, strengthen the bonds between them. It'll help them get to know each other a little bit better and encourage them and reward them for working with a good attitude. It doesn't have to be a monetary reward. It doesn't even have to be a physical reward. But especially for those olders, if you're pairing them, which I would suggest, with a younger, and they can go through it with a really good attitude, both about the work that they're doing and to the younger child, give them some extra special time, compliment them on their attitude in front of the younger ones. And I think that just goes a long way, getting them to actually work together, then can help you transition more smoothly into that homeschool experience where you're adding in the education. The other thing that I would say is, remain flexible, especially whether you're just pulling your kids out, homeschooling for the first time. Maybe you've got, 3 younger, like Adonna did. She had 1 starting, but 3 younger that weren't, technically starting school. You have to have flexibility with that. We oftentimes hear from homeschool moms who, and we've mentioned this before, come to the table with huge expectations and ideals based on, the snippets of a reel that they see on Instagram or Facebook.
Yep.
Of this beautiful schoolroom with all these kids sitting at a table doing, beautiful things with all the wood toys and everything all around. And that's just not always reality. So be flexible, manage your own expectations, take a look at, is what I'm seeing in another family, is that an expectation right now that I can set up for my family?
Is it even real?
Ideal. Yeah.
Is it even real? A picture that they just decided to put on Facebook?
Yeah.
It's the only time all those children actually sat still
Exactly.
all month long.
Exactly. And you don't see the one that was just about to like throw the crayon across the room. Right. And remember that even like 80 to 90% completion of your day.
Yes.
The things that you put forth in the day is really a win. So manage those expectations, maintain flexibility. You want to keep a good bar for your kids, but you don't want to make it unreachable and overwhelming because you're just going to be burned out. And it's not about burnout. It's about enjoying life together as a family. One of the posts that we put up just last week, I think, was talking about how homeschooling isn't just about books and information. It's about connection. And so if you're in this with multiple kids, that I think is foremost in the mind is how are we connecting with each other?
Right.
And then, assess while you're off for those 2 or 3 months or whether it's for the summer. What do I need to do to train my kids towards independence? I think that that's probably one of the most valuable things that I feel like looking back that I've given my kids is we've always been training them towards that independence.
Right.
Where one day they're going to take on their education as their own because it's their life. They're the ones who eventually are going to, reap the benefits for all this work that they've done. And so training in that started from day one. Not that they were independent at day one, but giving them little pieces. What is the proverb that talks about, he who is given... Well, that's not a proverb, is it? He who is given... It's actually Jesus' words that said, he who is given little and faithful in the little will be given much. And so giving your kids, if you're pulling your kids out of school for the first time, whether you have multiple kids or you just have one child, pulling your kids out of school and homeschooling in the very beginning, you need to go back to that very beginning. You need to go back to where you're right next to them, shoulder to shoulder, doing that work and training them to take on that responsibility. Now, not every kid, but a lot of them are going to be that way because to Adonna's point, in a school, they've been told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and, everything has been mapped out for them. And what we want is independent learners who they're going to have a schedule, but we're also going to teach them to go above and beyond that. Yeah.
They are by instinct going to push the envelope of what they're allowed to do. In a school situation, there are other people around them that kind of constrict their behavior because in a lot of ways they're afraid, how am I going to be judged if I do, whatever I'm thinking of doing.
Right. So in the comfort level, right? The comfort level with your family is much different than the comfort level that, you would display at school.
Yeah. So they are really going to start to push the envelope. So you have to make sure that you're setting boundaries, especially for yourself. You're not you're not the maid. No one is paying you to be the chauffeur. No one is paying you to be the cook. This is what you do because you love your children. And you are going to teach them how to be part of a family. Whenever arguments break out, you look at them and say, how do you expect to get along with other people in the world if you can't simply get along with one person in your family? Yeah. If this were someone in town, how would you deal with the situation? And you'll be able to see those issues really quickly. If you say, for instance, I will give you an example. I would look at a project and say, oh, this is going to be great. My kids are going to love this. Here's what we're going to do. And I would lay out the plans, and everybody would look at me like, oh, really? I don't want to do that. And wait, what do you mean you don't want to do it? I can't believe that you're crushing my dreams of not wanting to paint the entire entertainment center. I thought this would be really cool. We can get paint. You can choose a color. No, they didn't want to do it. So you give them say, okay, well, what project do you want to do this summer? They would come up with a project. And you say, oh, that's great. How do you want us to help you? And then they would look at you and say, I don't want anyone to help me. I don't want him in my room. I don't want him touching my stuff. I don't want him over here, or I don't want her to be anywhere near me when I'm doing it, right? And all of a sudden you realize, well, we seem to be having an issue with working together, and we seem to have a really issue with being disrespectful to each other. So then you can work on character issues, but all of that will come out because they love you and they're comfortable with you, and they really have a desire to poke their sibling. Yeah. So all of that comes out, and then you can gently say, well, we're going to work together. And sometimes I say, your sister's made a really good point. You do tend to not focus on what we're doing. So you do need to pay attention. This is her room. You don't want to mess up what's going on in here, because you're going to pay for it later when we do a project in your room. Yeah, and she's going to decide to put great big green globs of paint on your ceiling, right? So let's be nice and respectful. All of those things come into play, but wow, character is the main thing that for me homeschooling is about. And that's take a break, figure out where your kids are, and how you can work as a team. I love the idea of chores. Chores is one of those first initial things where they learn how to work as a team. And we always put a timer on it. We always said, for the next 10 minutes, this is what I need you to do. Or for the next 15 minutes, this is what I need you to do. Or after supper, the dishwasher's cleaned out. Everyone needs to rinse their dishes, put them in the dishwasher. That is what's going to occur. And then if I got up from the table and there's dishes there, you say, hey, whose dishes are these? And a lot of times that person would be already ensconced in their favorite chair with a book. And you go, sorry. Oh, can't you? Nope, not going to do it. I'm not the maid. I am not the maid. As cute as I might look in an apron, I ain't the maid. You're going to have to do this yourself.
Yes. So my homeschool mentor always says, never do anything for your children that they themselves can do. Right. And I think that's one of those beautiful things, especially, again, going back to if you're that mom who is thinking about pulling your kids out from school to homeschool, you may have previously done a lot of things for them because they had to be at a school at a certain time. They had to, have this, all the particulars of getting to another place to be educated. There's no longer that. And now that they're home, they have that time to be able to help around the house and do different things, so that you guys can have, as a family, have that time together to enjoy each other. And, one of my things that I tell families all the time is behavioral issues get dealt with before educational issues. Yes. When it comes to behavior, that character, as Adonna is talking about, is so much more important. That's going to carry them so much further than any facts or figures I can put in their head. Yes. Because if they have good character, if that's the foundation of their life, they're going to learn everything else they need. And so. Yeah, I agree. Homeschooling is the best thing you can do for your kids as far as education and character development. Make sure that your home is a Christian home, and then homeschooling them is so wonderful and helps you so much. But do make sure that you are not working yourself into more work. You're working yourself out of more work, right? For sure. And you don't remember that they're going to be just as afraid
about what's coming as you are. They're just as confused as you are. They have no clue what's going on, just like you don't. So they're going to be processing a lot of the same emotions. They're just not mature enough probably to process them well. Yeah. So understand that they're feeling a lot of the same things you're feeling, and give them time to process that. This is a lot of why Jami and I recommend take a break and kind of chill out for a bit before you, and do gentle, what we call like a gentle schooling, working together with the chores, and then reading aloud together, and those kinds, shopping together, give them a list, let them plan meals, those kinds of things.
Bake cookies for the next door neighbor, or for the elderly woman down the street.
Exactly. That's fabulous.
All those kinds of things that get them working together to kind of prime that pump. For when you're doing the formal schooling. Spring
is an excellent time when we've got storms. Pick up sticks in the neighbor's yard. If you have an elderly neighbor, and just go and pick up the sticks in their yard without being asked to. Just hang out and go get those and put them in a, put them in a pile somewhere.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is Benjamin Franklin. Many hands make light work.
Absolutely.
And so if, an older child can learn to work with a younger child, it goes that much quicker, and we get to have fun that much sooner. So if you are a mom who's considering homeschooling, whether you have multiple kids or you're just considering homeschooling one kid, we hope that this episode has helped you. If you have any questions, we are happy to chat with you and try to answer those questions. You can reach out to us at office@exoduschristianacademy.com. You can connect with us on Instagram at exoduschristianacademy.com, at Exodus Christian Academy, or on Facebook under the same username. And we hope to see you back next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Journey Through Homeschooling podcast. Practical support for every step of your homeschool adventure.